Week after week, One Piece continues to deliver, and this one was no different. With the previous chapter, we had a bit of Queen versus Sanji, along with the fact that Zoro was now being administered his impromptu treatment. Elsewhere on the Wano Sea, Luffy had now successfully been rescued and had an incredible craving for some meat. Onigashima was still in disarray thanks to Tama's prior decree, which made many of Kaido's forces turn on their own. From here, we would have Sasaki versus Franky, a very odd battle which ultimately resulted in Franky's victory. But at the same time on the roof, we would have the furtherance of Kaido versus Yamato. And here, Kaido would express how valuable the devil fruit Yamato had eaten was, and that he never intended for him to be the one to possess its power. And Yamato here would express that eating it was not intentional, as he had always dreamed of setting sail, but now he could not swim. That he tried to kill his father several times over and failed, but it was through these beatings that he only became that much stronger. That more than the cuffs his father had placed on him, he needed to remain and fight for this country if he was going to call himself Odin. And listen, to those of you that don't want to recognize the pronouns the character associates themselves with, talk to Kaido, because he himself calls Yamato his son. Get over it and get out of the comment section with that nonsense. Anyways, with this latest chapter, we'd pick up right from there as Kaido would further elaborate about Yamato's devil fruit. This was the Inu Inu no Mi model Makami, an incredibly valuable mythical Zoan type. A mythical creature I had only ever half known through the Persona franchise, but as it turns out, this creature prior to Japanese modernization was a species of wolf revered to be a sort of deity and sacred beast that protected the good and punished the wicked, having once hailed in the Yamato province. Now, for as cool as this may be, what disturbs me about this parallel would be the fact that although once revered, when it came time for Japan to modernize, this one sacred animal was then seen as a mere pest and hunted to extinction. That being said, perhaps this push for an open Wano will only invite further dangers that may very well threaten Yamato's life. What is surely something to ponder, but Kaido would continue to say that the Makami is Wano's guardian deity, and so it was to be Yamato's responsibility to protect the country for him. Despite the fact that, again, it was never his desire to have Yamato consume the fruit. And at this point, Kaido was really giving Yamato a hard time with each clash of Conqueror's Haki pushing Yamato back. But even still, Yamato refused to back down. Kaido would then acknowledge that Orochi was indeed a tyrant, but regardless, he'd managed to turn the entire country into a massive weapons manufacturer. And so all Yamato needed to do was take up the mantle as the country's ruler and reap the benefits. But again, the stance of Yamato was adamant, now expressing that he intended to aid the samurai and protect Wano from the clutches of Kaido, opening the country and freeing it from its chains, as he would then expel what seemed to be a chill breath attack. And this declaration seemed to remind Kaido of the true Odin himself, as he would return the favor with a breath attack of his own, refusing to let Yamato have his way. As the two powers would then clash, swirling and congealing together. He would then tell Yamato not to push his luck. From there, however, we would find ourselves on the third floor in the Great Banquet Hall, a location that was presently ablaze as Brook would call out to Robin, telling her to snap out of it and get it together. Which then brings us to a very foul ploy, as after all these many years, Robin would be faced by the visages of those dearly departed from her horrific past. It was her mother, Professor Clover, and then even Saul. And I hated this so much. Robin's backstory never fails to break my heart. So to know that this was someone's attempt at getting the better of her really bothered me. And for the record, Robin is one of my favorite characters in the entire series. But yeah, just seeing them, she was even driven to tears as she approached, much to the dismay of Brook. However, Robin knew all too well that this was not reality, and as such, would strike the imposters. What an absolutely foul trick. These were just a couple of Kaido's forces. And illusions are one thing, but for them to have used such memories against her is really messed up, and it's actually pretty impressive that Black Maria's illusions are even able to pry this much. But with that, Brook and Robin would begin to rush off elsewhere, then being chased by the massive Black Maria herself. And as it turns out, both Brook and Robin were immune to such illusions, and Brook would attribute this to his 50 years alone at sea. At the time, he'd surely dreamt of his friends surviving as he had, and it hurt every time. And with this, there was a very sweet sort of kinship between Robin and Brook, as they could both relate to one another considering their past struggles and circumstances. And I really love the Straw Hats for moments like this. But this wasn't exactly the best place to be bonding, as again they were being chased by a madwoman and her bizarre weapon, a man-faced dog on a hamster wheel that continued to create and spread fire. The most One Piece sentence ever uttered. But now Black Maria would shoot her web to the ceiling and suspend herself from there, now taking note that illusions are ineffective against the two. However, as she spun her weapon around, spreading these flames once more, she would conclude that dreams must still be able to work, considering they had fooled themselves into believing that they could actually take down Kaido. And as the flames spread around them, Robin would emulate Maria a bit here, as she would then shift her arm to be web-like and grapple herself and Brook upwards. And Robin would then warn Black Maria that at this rate, she would burn the entire place down. As Maria would then find this concern for the enemy comical and say that if she really cares that much, why not just give herself up? Robin, of course, being desired by just about every ambitious crew under the sun due to her ability to read the poneglyphs. But suddenly, Brook would ask Robin to hold onto him a bit longer, as with Maria's weapon being alive, perhaps he could do something, as he'd free his soul from his bones for a moment. And then he would use Cold Soul on the creature, chilling and freezing it over. Maria would then attempt to strike at the two and miss, but in the process, Robin was forced to let go of the ceiling. With this, Maria would then begin to trash talk, saying that Robin will always be alone and in the end, her crew will sell her out, saying that that is exactly what Sanji had done and calling for her help. Meanwhile, Brook would clear up the remaining flames and make the floor safe again for Robin to land. Maria would then express that with so many crews desiring Robin's capabilities, she was nothing but a liability to the Straw Hats. And clearly this woman had no idea what she was talking about, but would continue by speaking ill of Sanji and his cowardice despite having the second largest bounty on their crew. A statement that would make Brook laugh and commend Sanji, as he would then assume Robin was all good to handle this one on her own, to which Robin would agree, as he himself would take on the riffraff that was after them prior. And at that, you really gotta love Brook with the solid support and assists. Now Maria would then question if she had touched a sore spot for Robin or not, which would be denied, as she couldn't possibly understand what it means for Sanji to rely on her like that. And that furthermore, he is one of the wings that will allow the Pirate King to soar. And that right there automatically has become one of Robin's best lines ever. I mean, she has damn near crowned this man Luffy already, and I just love that faith. You gotta love the confidence. As Robin would then prepare herself for the rest of this fight with a giant version of herself surrounded by several sizable arms. I have always loved Robin's fruit, and I feel like especially if she were to incorporate a bit of Armamen's haki, it would be a considerable force, even more so I welcome any and all Robin fights. Not to mention she is a brutal combatant at that, so I am really looking forward to this one. But now, having made it to land, the Heart Pirates were still with Luffy, who was demanding meat after having eaten their entire supply already. But here they would meet up with Shinobu and Momonosuke, as Momonosuke was relieved to see Luffy still alive, as he would then begin to sob, having lost so many before his very eyes. But Luffy would stop him right there, as now was not the time to mourn. He was a leader here, and so if he was gonna cry, he would have to save it for later. It was still up to them to defeat Kaido. Luffy then proclaimed that he would not lose again. But now overlooking this exchange was Karibu, a character whose role in this conflict I have been questioning for some time now. He seriously needed Luffy to take Kaido down if he was to have any hope of leaving the country. Which is to say, at the very least, he must have some sort of semblance of faith in Luffy and the belief that he will win out in the end, which is interesting. But to close out the chapter, Luffy would make his declaration that it would be Momonosuke who would return him to the battle by transforming into a dragon and flying him upwards, and that was the chapter. Momonosuke's dragon form is something I've absolutely been dying for Kaido at some point to acknowledge, and I imagine that time is now approaching. Some legendary stuff is just around the corner, so best believe I am excited, and you should be too. I am really glad that the Straw Hats are each getting their individual emphasis in this conflict as well, which just goes to show how good this series is at handling its large cast of characters. But with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video enough to subscribe to Plot Armor with notifications on. We can also continue the discussion in the comments or over on Twitter and Instagram at PlarmerYT, where we also bring to you the latest and greatest anime and manga news, memes, and information. Because when it comes to bringing you some of the best One Piece content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.